Welcome to today's Hangout. We will be talking today to Sue Ellson. She's an independent LinkedIn professional and the founder of Newcomers Network. Hi, Sue. How are you?
Good, thanks, Sam. And you?
I'm good, thanks. How's work with LinkedIn lately? I think there's a lot of changes happening in LinkedIn with new mobile apps and even new ways to search for jobs on LinkedIn.
Yeah, look, there's always a lot of changes happening at LinkedIn. You may know already that it was started on the 5th of May 2003. I joined on the 21st of December 2003, and what it looked like then compared to what it looks like now is extremely different. And originally they just started off as a professional network for people, so just to connect people, and now they've moved more into a publishing platform. And I see these apps as all a bit of a segue into their third incarnation, which is going to be a B2B platform. So we can imagine all sorts of things happening in the future. One of them that I predict will happen is that because this is basically a huge database where the users update their details, I see it actually being something that a lot of companies will want to integrate with the database of LinkedIn, because at least that way it will be kept up to date, and any business knows that the value is in the database, but also the value in an accurate database where the details are regularly updated.
And I think people are always updating their LinkedIn profiles to keep it fresh and full of information about them. Because I think now we can say that LinkedIn is the first place for recruiters to look
It,
for candidates now.
it definitely is the first place to look for candidates, and you'll find that every recruiter subscribes to the LinkedIn Recruiter Service, which is about 10 grand a year. But that said, I don't believe that everybody updates their profile. Now, in the digital industry, there's probably a lot better currency and recency than in other industries. But for instance, I was talking to somebody this morning about oil and gas, and there's a whole bunch of people who just have never entered and are very hesitant participants in the platform. And there were some stats done a little while ago saying that over 50% of the people on LinkedIn earn more than 100 grand a year. But when you think about their biggest expanding markets going into China and students, I mean, a lot of those people, particularly the middle class, may not be earning that sort of money. So I think we'll see the platform change over time. But if you want to be found, you've got to update your details. You've got to be focused on your primary keywords and your secondary keywords, and you also need to be active on the platform, because the people who are active and are doing things, their certain activity is rewarded on LinkedIn. And also eventually it'll be a bit like the yellow pages, where the only good ads are the ones you pay for. And I predict also that as more people get online, the competition will be higher, and you'll almost be obligated, if you want to stay at the top of the tree, to be a premium member.
Yeah, it seems that this is coming on the way. Being a premium member will be like a must if you're looking for a job. But let me ask you a question here about updating the profiles again.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that people in certain age bracket are updating more than others? Let's say people between 20 and 35 might be updating more than older than that?
Oh, look, I definitely think that a 20 to 35-year-old would probably have a lot more to add, because their level of education and the opportunities that they have available to them, quite often they're much more active participants in daily life and getting out and about. And I work with a lot of people over the age of 50, and they've already done all that sort of stuff, and they don't want to rehash that kind of information. And a typical Australian doesn't really want to showcase all of that, and they feel like typing it all up just looks ridiculous and it's too much, and so on and so forth. But then when I explain to them the concept of the computer experience versus the user experience, my profile is extremely long, and I reckon I could easily spend another 5 hours adding more content on there. And I do that because the content generates the inquiries, and I see LinkedIn as a pull strategy rather than a push strategy. So if we think about a digital professional, if I hear that Sam's fantastic, the first thing I'm going to do is go home and Google you and see what comes up. Now, in most cases, your LinkedIn profile is going to be the first item in search results, so people will click on that. And in fact, I created my own exact match domain name, sueellson.com, in 2012, and it took me 6 months to get that above my LinkedIn profile on Google search. So with that in mind, LinkedIn is likely to be something that's going to come up, or it could be somewhere where people search. And then when people do search and they look at that profile, does it tell them the story they want to hear? And if it doesn't tell them that story, then you can miss out on the deal, even if you've got the the best referral from the best referrer. You still need to have that good quality data and information in there.
Yeah, that's good. That's great. And this takes me to the next question, which is about the keywords. We were talking about keywords even in LinkedIn profiles now.
I
So,
believe so, because I come from a background of creating websites and doing search engine optimization. I've got a presentation coming up here in Melbourne at the Melbourne SEO meetup next week, and I will be talking more about SEO techniques for LinkedIn there. But we need to remember that LinkedIn is basically a database with a whole bunch of algorithms, so it's exactly the same sort of thing as what Google is. And so for that reason, there are places where I believe your primary keywords should be to help you come up in search results, and where your secondary keywords should be to assist your profile opportunities. So for example, your primary keywords must be in your headline. That is the place where it needs to be. So don't just rely on it being your job title. That's where you really need to put the words you want to be found for. The second most important place is in your current job title. So although you might be a digital expert, you then would put dash social media, Twitter, LinkedIn, whatever it is that you're a specialist in, because those keywords in that job title are the second most important spot for your keywords. The third most important spot is your past job title, and then it goes down to sections like your education. So really fantastic for you to put a list of all your subjects in your courses, even if it's unrelated. And then in your summary section, so that's where you do a little bit of a bio. You can, and I really encourage people to use dot points rather than huge long sentences, because everybody just scrolls now, we don't read. And the final one is in the various experience sections. So when you talk about each job. So one of the ones that I like to talk about is the word training. So I started my training career in 1987, which is probably before a lot of the people on this call or who are listening to this were even born. But anyway, that's when I started training. And in 1982 was when I started that job. So by putting the word training in my job starting in 1982, it actually gives me 5 years more experience than what I've actually got, because that particular job went for 11 years and 3 months. So by putting that keyword throughout your profile, you automatically end up being known for having training experience for a long period of time, because that word training appeared right from the first job right through to all the others. So if you think about the keywords you want to optimize, even if there was only a very small component of that particular task in a previous job, if you include it in your experience section, then LinkedIn is going to say, well, this person has actually been training since 1982. They must know something about training. And I've actually found that a lot of people search for training and find me.
that's great. And I was talking to a recruiter a few days ago, and he told me that sometimes they start searching by putting a keyword in the search bar in LinkedIn,
Mm-hmm.
and they search for the people who has this skill.
Correct.
So if
You've
we're
always
talking
got
about,
to, yep, absolutely, Sam. You've got to think about what the person who is looking for is going to type you in. And I'll give you another fantastic example of this. Last year I spoke at a conference in Adelaide, the Career Development Association of Australia conference, and all the people in the room help people with their careers. Now, when I think of somebody who can help me with my career, the only terminology I would think of would be a career counsellor or a career coach or something like that. So
yeah,
I typed in Career Counsellor Adelaide into the LinkedIn search bar, and not one of those professionals came up in search results. Now you would think, considering that is their area of expertise and they're the types of clients they want, they would have that word in their profile. But the reality was that they called themselves in the profession career development practitioners. So that was the words, the
That's very
keywords.
far, I guess, from what were people looking for.
Correct, exactly. So if you know that somebody really needs, digital something or another, but they're still using the terminology social media, then if you don't have the word social media as one of your primary keywords, you're just not going to come up in search results. So now, of course, when I type in career counsellor in Adelaide, a whole bunch of them come up because they've now added that keyword to their profile. But you really have to sort of tune in and think, if somebody's looking for my skills, what words are they going to be searching for? And they're the words you have to include. And another example of this is when I first started doing websites. I've been online with websites since 2001. And what I did is I used to go to these seminars and they talk about usability and accessibility and design and so on. But now we talk about UX, user design, CX, customer experience, etc., etc. So there's all these new words that have come into that same area of specialty. So you actually need to include the old words, but if you were actually doing usability back in 2001, and now it's called UX, you would have to remember to write UX back in your job that you did in 2001 to show that you have more experience in that area.
That's really fantastic. I think a lot of people will be updating their profiles now with new ideas or new keywords, and they will have different way of thinking about their profiles now.
I hope
So
so, yeah.
yeah, thanks for that, Alison. Thanks for all these ideas and points.